So we want to divide these two. The answer to any division is called a quotient. So to do this, when you divide, you're going to flip the second one and multiply. But you first want to factor each piece. So what we got here is we keep the 6 on top. The bottom here needs to be factored. So if I factor this bottom on the left, 2 on top, negative 3 on bottom, what do things multiply to get 2 and add to get negative 3? That's negative 2 and negative 1. So when we factor that, we got x minus 2, x minus 1. And I'm going to make that a multiply. It is a divide, but I'm going to multiply the reciprocal of this. All right, forgot that right there. So if I do the reciprocal of this, won't the 3x now be on the bottom? So the bottom is now 3x. The top will be this factored. Now to factor this, you might see it's a difference of squares, but what I always like to do whenever there's a negative x squared, I like to convert those to a positive x squared, so I'm going to pull out a negative 1. So when I factor this, I'm going to put it on the top of the second one. I'm going to pull out a negative 1. So I have a negative 1 comes out. When I pull that out, we're going to do the opposite of each of these and put the x squared first. So that's going to be x squared minus 1. If you were to distribute this, you'd end up with this. So at this point, we're now going to multiply across, but this can still factor. This still factors. Hopefully you see that that top piece is a difference of squares. Hopefully you can see that's a difference of squares. So if we multiply the tops across and factor this last piece, multiply the bottoms, we then try to simplify and we'll be done. So when we multiply the tops together, negative 1 times 6 is negative 6. So we have negative 6. And then on the top, the difference of squares will give us x plus 1, x minus 1. Just a reminder, this right here is factored as x plus 1, x minus 1. It's called a difference of squares. And I multiplied these two together. Now for the bottom, everything's factored, so I'm just going to rewrite it. And I like to put these in front. It's just common to put this in the front and these pieces behind. So I'm going to start with a 3x in front, and then I have the x minus 2 and the x minus 1. So now I have simplified and multiplied, started with the quotient, made it a multiply. Now I have a single expression I'm going to clean up. So what divides out? Hopefully you can see those are gone. Now hopefully you can also see that 6/3 becomes 2 over 1. Just don't forget that negative. That negative can easily lose. So nothing else divides out, so what's left on top is a negative 2, don't lose the negative, and the x plus 1. That's what's left on top. On bottom, we have the x still, and we have the x minus 2. So on the top, we have negative 2, x plus 1. On the bottom, we have 1 times x, which is x, x minus 2. Nothing else seems to eliminate, so that right there is our final simplified answer.